to the MoneyRx for CRNAs podcast, where you go behind the scenes with host Brett Fellows, CFP, as he explores the unique opportunities and challenges facing certified registered nurse anesthetist along the path to financial independence. In each episode, Brett shares expert insights and actionable advice, equipping you with the tools you need to take control of your financial destiny and retire on your terms. And now, here's your host, Brett Fellows.
As you may or may not know, over the last month, we've been going through the different chapters of my MoneyRx for CRNAs, Secrets and Strategies to Maximize Wealth and Retirement book. And this week, we are diving into the third chapter of the book, and the title of this chapter is Purposeful Spending. And this is one of my favorites because this is where, now that you've set some financial goals and gained some clarity about your current location and used that knowledge to create a big picture financial plan, it's time to narrow the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And so whether you've discovered that you owe more than you thought or you've identified some ambitious goals, I imagine you're feeling a bit overwhelmed at this point. How will you ever pay down your student loan? Where will you find the extra money? Where do you go from here? And if you've gotten clearer about your values, goals, and current reality, you might be thinking it's now time to start talking about investing your money. But hold on. Before we get there, we need to talk about something really important first. Because you could have the best investing strategy in the world, but if you don't have any money to invest, it really won't help. So we need to spend a little time figuring out where the money will come from. So, this next chapter will give you some tools to help you take control of your spending and saving today. And again, I always want to reiterate that Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So don't put unrealistic expectations on yourself. Building out all of these processes takes tons of time. So make sure that you're scheduling that time for yourself. And you know that this is just a whole process. You know with these episodes, you can come back and whenever you want. But my goal here is to just lay out all of the framework for you of the book, to really give you a roadmap you can follow to build your being smart about money over time. All right, so let's dive into this week, Purposeful Spending. Some weeks, your life as a CRNA might feel like it's moving at the speed of light. And because of that, it can be so very hard for you to keep up, especially if you don't have the right systems and mindset around money in place. And you might find that without solid money habits in place, getting all of your to-dos done around your busy schedule can often just seem impossible. So, for example, you might have had the task on your to-do list to go through the values conversation from Chapter 1 with your spouse, and maybe it's lived there for about 3 weeks or maybe even 3 months, maybe more. Well, if that sounds familiar, you're okay. You're not alone, and I've got just the thing to help. Right now, if you become part of our CRNA client community, we can start building and implementing the exact same effective plan for your life and your money that I've used in my life, and I've helped hundreds of clients implement in theirs. This way, you can identify what you truly want from life, get crystal clear about the financial position you are starting from today, and develop a simple, actionable plan to narrow the gap between the two. And you can take the guesswork of what investments you need, or do you need a budget, or how do you know if you're saving enough, or should you fund a Roth? You can just take the guesswork out about that and get it done already using the templates, checklists, and samples from our advisory firm. So think about how it would feel to have all of that in place sooner rather than later. It would also mean that tasks like rebalancing your portfolio or knowing how much to save into a 529 plan, those could be finally marked done on your to-do list. If you are ready to get organized and eliminate overwhelm and finally get all of those processes around your money built out to support the financial life you've always dreamed of, I'd love to invite you to join our amazing CRNA client community. We start our next new client onboarding on March 3rd. So if you're considering joining us, or if you just want to find out more information, absolutely zero pressure, you can schedule a discovery call with me directly to find out if it's the right program for you at the right time. I am more than happy to talk through all of the details with you, and you can click the link, or you can find the link to schedule a discovery call out on our oakcapitaladvisor.com website, where you would book a pre-op assessment. I'm happy to tell you if we're a good fit or if we're not a good fit. I'm very particular about who gets to join our client community. And if it's not a good fit for you, I will gladly tell you, because my job is to get you across the finish line. All right, let's dive into this week's content. Between the capital balance sheet and the emotional balance sheet that I talked about last episode, you can start to see how financial awareness can work in your favor. It can even improve your closest relationships. Once we are aware of the emotions and behaviors affecting our financial choices, it's then time to put good habits into practice at the most fundamental level: budgeting. Now, most of us know that a budget is essential, but not all of us were taught how to create, or more importantly, stick to one. Even if you once knew, those skills may have slipped over time. But now that we've uncovered your core values and motivations, the next priority is to find a budget that aligns with those values and works for you. Impulses versus values, budgeting for a better future. Sometimes what we buy doesn't really align with what we want in the long run. Now, it's easy to give in to impulse spending because it feels good in the moment. And maybe buying that new outfit makes you feel successful, even though it's going on a credit card. Or maybe you've been eyeing a new car. What's another loan if it means putting off savings for just a few more years, right? But no doubt about it, modern consumer culture is full of traps that lure us into buying many things we don't truly need. But that's only half of the problem. Sure, marketing departments have a lot to answer for, but ultimately, we're the ones who are buying. So here's the problem. Spending money to show people you have money, or to prove to yourself that you do, is the quickest way to lose it. When you take control of your finances, you have to own up to all those tempting purchases that feel good now, but don't serve your long-term goals. The truth is, many of those expenses, whether it's material goods or frequent vacations on credit, aren't investments. They're debts that pile up. And even if you're paying off your credit card every month, it's possible that your retirement accounts are still being neglected. You're indulging in the present rather than valuing your future self. And let's face it, you and I don't know what the future holds. It's hard to make sacrifices today for a future that feels far away. But the number of times I've sat down with couples who seem to have it all, yet feel discouraged because they're nowhere near passing down generational wealth, is higher than you might think. If we want to take control of our finances, we also have to take responsibility for the many unnecessary purchases we've made, and understand that nothing will change unless we change our behavior. But enough tough love. Budgeting isn't just about crunching numbers. It's about mindfulness. It's about intentionality. My goal isn't to create a budget that makes you feel guilty for spending. I mean, no one likes budgeting, not even me. But it is about understanding why and how you're spending your money. When you get to the heart, like we did with our values conversation and the emotional balance sheet, budgeting becomes much easier. I've seen clients completely shift their habits just by recognizing how their budget could help improve their lives. Budgeting isn't just about numbers. It's about awareness. Its purpose isn't to punish ourselves for spending money. It's to become very aware of how we're spending our money so that we have enough for the things that matter most. Just like saving, spending money in alignment with your values brings more happiness. So why don't we do it more often? Well, here I think are the top 3 reasons. 1, we don't think budgeting is fun. 2, we assume we already know where our money goes. And 3, we're afraid to really see the truth. The reality is, your financial goals require money, dollars that add up over time. And without a system in place, those dollars can easily slip away. That's where purposeful spending comes in. So, the 50-30-20 rule. Now, I'm a fan of keeping things simple, and that's why I believe the 50-30-20 rule is one of the best ways to save and manage money in the long run. But before diving into that, I encourage you to do the following. First, track every penny for a set period, whether it's a week or a month. Write down everything you spend. Yes, even the small things. And 2, use tools that would work for you. Tools like rocketmoney.com or youneedabudget.com. Those are great for keeping track of your spending and saving. 3, see budgeting as empowering. It doesn't have to be a chore. It's about creating a future you can feel good about. And 4, watch out for one-time events. Be honest with yourself about any unusual spending patterns or one-time expenses that may affect your bigger picture. But after a month or 2 of tracking, you'll have a much clearer understanding of where your money is going. At that point, you might discover you need to rethink some of your spending habits. Many people who balked at the idea of budgeting end up embracing it as a daily practice. Others might pick a month per quarter whenever they feel it's time for a recalibration. What's most important is that you use what you've tracked to determine whether or not your values are in sync with your behaviors. As soon as many people see the connection between budgeting and awareness, something clicks and they need no further convincing. But if you find yourself resisting turning it into a habit, let me leave you with one final idea. Find a way to turn budgeting into a game by seeing how few transactions you can have. Now, don't even worry about how much particular items cost. The goal is to simply limit the number of transactions each day. Okay, by now you've done a lot of foundational work to help you understand where you are and where you want to be. Now you're going to use what you've learned to come up with a savings plan that makes sense for you. And this is where the 50-30-20 rule comes in. It's simple, effective, and allows for balance. I like this method because it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing everything for the future. Life is about balance, and budgeting should reflect that. You should be able to save for your future while still enjoying your present. So here's how the rule works. 50% of your net income goes to necessities like housing, food, and bills. 30% of your net income goes to your wants, things like shopping, dining out, entertainment, etc. And 20% of your net income goes into savings and investments or debt repayment. By following the 50-30-20 rule, you'll feel empowered to consistently contribute to your savings while still living your life. Again, it's all about balance. You can enjoy a nice dinner out or a new pair of shoes without feeling like you're compromising your financial future. In fact, you may even come to value your purchases more. But what if you were too busy trying to pay a student loan and other bills in your 20s, or like many of us, you had to use all of the savings that you'd built up to get through the last few years? And now, with your savings a lot smaller than you know they should be, you feel like you've missed the boat. Well, if you didn't start early, start now. Don't worry about what you did or didn't do already. Just start. Your ability to move forward will be greatly improved if you don't spend too much time dwelling in the past. Yes, it's helpful to take a step back and look for patterns the way you did in Chapter 2. But you need to approach it with a no shame, no blame type of attitude. Give yourself permission to use the past as a springboard to save more, not beat yourself up. Budgeting in real life. So budgeting in real life doesn't always go as planned, but that's where flexibility and awareness come in. Let me tell you a story about my good friend John and his wife Nia. Now, John and I have known each other for years. We often play golf together. And one day, he shared that he and Nia had a dream of building their forever home, but they needed to save a significant amount of money to make it happen. And he wasn't sure where to start, so I suggested that he track their spending. And his reaction was one I've heard many times before. I'm afraid of what I'll find out if I do that. Now, this fear is common. People are often afraid to see the truth about where their money goes. But curiosity got to the better of John, and he did decide to track their spending for a couple of months. Now, the results? They were spending far more on golf than they ever realized. The travel, dining out, the gear, and of course, the rounds of golf itself. When he told me, we both had a good laugh. I was like, does that even surprise you? You and I are always on the golf course. And he admitted no, but it's embarrassing. The amount we spend on it's way out of proportion to our savings. Now, John and Nia loved golf. It was a huge part of their lives. They had no idea how much of their income was going towards it. And after the initial shock wore off, they started to rethink their goal of building a forever home. And suddenly, that big dream didn't seem as important. They realized that the flexibility and the freedom that they enjoyed from their current lifestyle, filled with the golf and travel, was more valuable to them than tying up their money in a big house. And instead of cutting back on their golf budget, John and Nia decided to embrace it. They recognized that their spending was actually aligned with their values. They didn't need to change their spending habits after all. They just needed clarity about what truly mattered to them. This realization freed them from the pressure of their forever home dream, and it made them feel good about where their money was going. So tracking their spending brought them clarity and peace of mind. It's the same for you. By facing the reality of your spending, you'll gain a better understanding of what truly matters to you. Now, whether it's a positive revelation like John and Nia's, or a realization that you need to adjust, this awareness is empowering. So budgeting is important, not only because it reminds us not to spend so much on gasoline or takeout food, but also because it helps us cultivate the awareness that we need to save and spend in accordance with our values. Budgeting forces us to face the reality of how we spend. It allows us the opportunity to see the gap between what we say is important to us and how we spend our money. So I hope this was a helpful episode for you guys. Thank you again so much for listening. And if you're wanting to make 2025 your most organized, best year yet when it comes to planning your money, paying less in taxes, investing smarter, I'd love for you to join us as part of our CRNA client community. If not, I'm just so very grateful that you are a listener to this podcast and you have helped make this podcast really what it is. I'm so excited about how many listens we get and how many CRNAs have found the show. And you all are really just awesome. So thank you. And in 2025, my goal is to do a couple more speaking events for CRNAs than I did in 2024. So we're talking exhibits and breakouts at state association meeting, AANA annual meeting, the virtual Facebook Live events, virtual also if your company does quarterly calls or virtual calls or whatever, have them reach out to me. I'm happy to be a part of them. I'd love to talk to your group about a couple different of my favorite topics. I have 5 main keynote topics that I just love to do, and I would love to do them for your group. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week. And as always, you can find me at oakcapitaladvisor.com and on LinkedIn or Instagram at MoneyRx for CRNAs. Thanks so much.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. This podcast does not engage in rendering legal, financial, or other professional services.